All right. First podcast ever. Jeremy and I are here with my neighbor, Roman. And just to give a little bit of background, I don't know if you've seen, what's it called? Home Improvement, where the guy has a neighbor. His name's Wilson, and he sort of peeks over the fence. He's the best neighbor. He comes to Tim Allen for like advice and stuff. That's sort of how I see Roman. He's like he's not my next door neighbor. He's right across the street, but like right across the street. And I see you, Roman, as just like this great neighbor who's a person I can just go talk to all the time, and we can talk about our kids, our family, our yards, our bugs, and things like that, or biking or whatever. And I appreciate you being there, and especially like if we're cooking and we don't have an ingredient, we're sort of the go-to guys to get those ingredients from. So I thought, who better to have our first podcast with ever than my neighbor, sort of super close to home. And you and I both are in our houses. We could just walk over 10 seconds to see each other, but here we are virtually meeting, which is kind of funny. But thanks for being here, Roman.
Well, thanks for having me. It's it's nice to have the technology that we can sit on our butts and just like, I'm not gonna. Although probably would have been cooler if we just sat on the couch together and just chatted face to face.
Totally agree. Yeah. But hopefully someday this will allow us to talk to anybody anywhere, right?
Right.
So you guys currently are next door neighbors right now, you're saying?
Across the street, next door neighbors.
Oh, across the street. Okay, right on.
Yeah. So instead of peeking over the fence, I'm peeking over the road. Or somebody's parked car.
Right on.
Our road's not super dangerous, but it's also not 100% safe. So we're usually out there making sure our kids don't run across to each other, and cars will drive a little too fast, like most normal suburban roads in America.
It's yeah. Sometimes I want to, the kids, you trust them to do the right thing, but then you remember they're 3 or 4, and it's just, no, I better be out there.
That's a tough age. Your kids are a little bit younger than mine. I've been there many times. My youngest is 5, and he's one of our children that's probably the most trustworthy to just stay in our yard than anyone. Although it's not 100%, he will walk out there now and then. But
as witnessed, yeah, that kid will stay and play in the front yard, and not like I've never seen him run into the traffic unless some of my progeny. So
it's unique. It's different.
Yeah, he's good like that. I hope that some of that will rub off on my kids, but we'll see.
It's possible. In my experience, they sort of just are who they are.
Yeah, that's true. So, but it's great. And speaking of your kid too, I mean, because we met each other, you guys moved into the neighborhood a year.
2 years ago, just over 2 years.
Has it been 2 years already? Time goes by. But now is the age when I'm noticing so much change in just my oldest child. Almost every week he's getting new words, expresses new ideas as a 4-year-old, which, the idea is kind of like, who wants to go to the store with dad? Nobody. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I've never heard that said before to me by, you. So those kind of things. So
yeah,
putting things together, and your boy also changed. So what I'm saying is, there's a lot of growth that was happening. It's awesome. Yeah.
Indeed. Let's see, Roman. One of your big hobbies these days is biking. Yeah. Why do you love road biking so much? Tell us a little about that.
Well, it's like asking a crack addict, why do you like crack? It's addicting at the end. At the end of the day, it's fun, man. It's I think number one is allows you to just. It's the only time you get to yourself in the day. Well, aside from even sleeping wise, kids intrude. They come at night and make demands. Sometimes, at least they're in the age where they still do that to my wife and I. But they can't catch up to me when I'm on a bike. So, and I can literally drop them. So,
well, and I do a little biking. I do a little bit of biking, but you do a lot, I think. don't you?
I mean,
And you go far.
compared to whom, right? So some people, like I saw this guy, and they put on, I don't want to, it's like 7 or 8,000 miles this year.
Oh wow.
That's a lot. Since the month of August, I probably did like 1,200 tops. So, and that's me like committing to it. And those guys are obviously, there's always somebody with more ability and free time to do that. It's at the end of the day, it takes time to. So it's nothing you can just dig out in 20 minutes.
So do you? Sorry, I don't know anything about it. Obviously, I've never met you. So first of all, nice to meet you. And thanks for being here. Do you do that just as a hobby, or do you do that competitively, or how long have you been doing that for?
Well, I started it as a hobby, where I'm like, my buddy just wanted to. So I have a friend of mine who's a super avid cyclist, and not competitive. Like he doesn't go compete a lot, but he's really good. And well, compared to like me freshly getting into it a couple of years ago, and I'm like, oh, I'll give it a shot. Then slowly, the more you do it, the more you start liking it, and then you start meeting people, and you get on Strava, which is like a must do for cyclists nowadays. And all of a sudden, it becomes a little bit more competitive. You start thinking, oh, maybe I'll try to beat this record. And especially competing against yourself. And then if you get trapped, you start competing against other people, which you can never do. I mean, there's some 20-year-olds there who can put out crazy amount of power and sustain it, which
right on.
Can't do it. But it's fun to do it to yourself. It's really fantastic. Like in the span of a couple of months to be able to go up a hill and almost die on it, how hard it is to actually 2 months later go up on it. It's like, oh, that wasn't too bad. So
Well, and when you say hill, I mean we're surrounded by massive mountains, and you ride up them. Maybe not the biggest of them, but you're riding up mountains too, right?
well, I don't go into the mountain trails. I'm still deathly afraid of mountain biking, but on the roads, going to the mountains, get up.
But I mean, the roads go up the mountain.
They do, but they don't. It's not very steep. It's maybe a gentle 6% grade or something.
Okay.
It's just over 6 or 7 miles. That's what gets to you. It's the arduousness of it. So it's not necessarily high. I mean, the elevation is also like 3,600 feet, but it's that it keeps constant that it gets to you at some point. So. But it's a fun sport. I cannot recommend it more to anybody. It's low impact, unless you crash. Then it's very high impact. Then it's good cardio, good everything. The only barrier is high barrier of entry, which is buying a bike, maintaining it, getting all the gear. If you really want to get into it, it's at some point it's like. It becomes a privileged sport. It's like rowing. If you have a canoe, is that canoeing? No, it's not a canoe.
Kayak?
Yeah, the long ones, right?
I think they're kayak. Oh, maybe they are canoes. I don't even know.
Oh, just rowing, like the rowers.
Yeah. If you're carrying that carbon fiber instrument and climbing it on the river, you must live close to a river, be able to afford a boat. And have the time to do it.
Probably go to an Ivy League school or something.
Yeah, to be exposed to that kind of stuff, which to each his own. But it's nice. Yeah, you wish everybody could appreciate it. So I wish everybody could get a bike.
So, speaking of high impact crashes, I've only been in 2 road bike crashes on my commute to work. Both of them, I came to a stop sign and I couldn't get my foot out of the locked in pedals, so I just went.
Happened to me twice too.
It's really embarrassing when the car pulls up next to you and they're just like looking down on you. That happened to you?
The worst thing about those crashes is you might get a little bump on your hip, hematoma, is that the bruise, and then your pride gets suffered a little bit, and it always looks worse than from the side because people would run up to me and say, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine." "Are you sure?" "Look, I have a helmet on. I wasn't moving. It just tipped."
I'm a
So
little
yeah,
embarrassed.
I
Just
was
stop talking
yeah.
to me.
Yeah, you appreciate it. Makes you realize, oh, people are actually nice. They see
True.
somebody quality come over. But I'm happy. Climbing up and down those hills. Climbing up the hill is hard, but also coming down is surprisingly difficult. Your bike picks up a lot of speed. So I think that the top speed I hit was like 56 miles an hour.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm not gonna do that again.
That's crazy.
You start thinking, you know what? You don't want to brake too fast. You don't want to turn too fast at that point. If anything breaks, that's a hospital visit. And I'm like, I'm doing it so I can stay in shape and see my kids grow up, not
Yeah.
so that I can, have any bragging rights of like going the fastest on this dumb route, which you could, but it comes with the inherent.
So you haven't
risk.
had any serious accidents? It sounds like just a couple minor.
No, I mean there are hardly accidents. Just I just fell off your bike.
Oh,
So
yeah.
no broken bones or scuffed.
That's good. Yeah.
Epidermis stayed on me.
56 is really fast. So to put it in perspective, on my bike, I'm pretty sure, as far as I know, I've only gone like 30, somewhere between 30 and 35. I don't even think I've seen it go above 31 or 2. And so like 56 is super fast. Granted, that was a $100 bike off Facebook Marketplace, but it is a road bike.
Almost any bike will go that fast if you have a good enough grade. So at a 10% grade, you'll go pretty quick. So
yeah, but
the funny
get a
thing
little
is,
bit wobbly. So it's a little, it's terrifying for me.
yeah.
Your bike is much sleeker.
Yeah, it didn't wobble, but I did get passed by a guy on a e-bike with much fatter tires, which give you a greater sense of security, I'd say.
On a downhill or an uphill?
On a downhill. So
Oh, wow.
he was going faster than me. It's like, I don't know where he was in such a hurry to get to, but I hope it was worth it.
You're not talking about when you were going 56, are you?
Yeah, he passed me while I was going 56. So he's probably he's 60. He's probably going 60, yeah.
He's basically got a throttle, right? I mean, he's like in a car on a bike.
Yeah, but why would you throttle going down? Like that's
Yeah.
what's crazy to me. It's already dangerous. Why are you making it more?
Do you think he was more stable on that bike you're saying because of the fat tires?
Absolutely. He had big fat tires.
Yeah.
So he was definitely putting power into the bike because he'd be slowing down a lot more than I did.
But then at that speed, he had to like pass you in the little bike lane, or at least
No, no. We were in the road.
Okay.
We were essentially we were we were going faster than cars. So the cars, if the cars wanted to catch up to us, they would have to,
You think he was showing off? That's pretty fast.
Well, it's not that. So your bike wants to go fast downhill, and then you just need to manage your speed. And I don't know what I was thinking. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna wear out my brakes because you can, you wear out your pads if you brake too much. And I'm like, I'm gonna save them. And then by the time I thought better, it was already too fast. So just gonna ride it out. So, but your eyes start tearing up. You don't think about those things, but you can't react as fast to what's on the road. You can't see very well. It's loud. So, if you don't have a lot of experience, I would recommend to sticking to flatter hills, which is, a good life advice generally. Until you get enough experience, stay.
There you go.
That's a good point.
Stay put.
Have you been ramping up? I mean, like, sorry, I don't know what I'm even asking. How many miles do you go? Like, how long are these runs that you're doing? Are these?
My sweet spot is about 40 miles. That's
a
nice, day? A ride.
In a ride.
A ride. Is that like daily?
Well, no.
Just
I think if you average on daily, it'd be like a 40 mile and a 20 miler. So it's like 30 miles a day. That's a perfect ride for me.
That's a lot.
Wow.
I think that's a lot.
Well, if you want to get in shape, it's just the right amount. If you're a pro, it's not nearly enough, and if you're a civilian, then it seems crazy. But it's really once you get in. Yeah.
I probably haven't ridden that much ever, but are you hoping to get into like bigger things like triathlons or anything, or do you do that stuff?
I don't think so. I think
Yeah.
for now I'm doing it just for myself.
Cool.
Again, just to see my kids grow up, because having toddlers in your 40s, puts things in perspective a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
I'll be 60 when they're about to go to college. If I want to see grandkids, I probably need to pay attention to my cardiac health. So,
Yeah. Cool.
I feel you.
which is biking is the solution to that in my mind.
That's cool.
So, yeah, but that's it.
Nice.
You guys,
Cool.
yeah, Jeremy, I don't think you introduced yourself actually.
Yeah, sorry. I'm John's younger brother. So before the podcast I kind of met, but yeah, I'm actually 10 years younger than John. So you were asking if we were twins, right? But yeah, I grew up with John and younger brother, and we have 4 in between me and John. So we have 1 older sister and then 4 between us. So yeah.
That's a number.
Yeah, there's a lot. There was 6. Yeah, so it's good to meet you. I mean, I live in St. George, by the way, so I'm down
All right.
south. I don't know if you ever come down here.
We have some family down
Okay.
south. It's so we have 2 kids kicking our butts. We had them pretty close together, but my hat's off to all parents. I mean, they say, oh yeah, there's no such thing. There's no other experience that can compare to having children, which is true in both joy and the misery that it brings to you. And
Just
the
no way to prepare.
realization, right, and then later on, once the shock wears off, and you happen to have a second, then you realize it must be some kind of a hoax that people are like, yeah, have kids, more kids are more fun, because it's really difficult. And maybe it's just me complaining, because I have no idea how people have more than a couple. You guys are crazy. John, you have 5, right?
Yeah, I have 5. I think you might be thinking Jeremy said he had 6, but he's talking about our siblings. We had
Well, right. So your parents have
6 of
6.
us.
John has 5.
Yeah,
I
Jeremy
don't know
doesn't
how
have
many.
any, but
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, there's 6 of us siblings, and then my older siblings, they all have a bunch of kids, and I actually don't have any kids. I've never been married, so I don't know the pain or the joy. I can kind of sense it. I can kind of sense a lot of it, you know. I can see the craziness of kids and the fun of kids, but yeah, no, I can totally understand or hear you for sure.
It's a
I could
singular
talk for a long
experience.
time about this subject.
What I don't understand is how the world even, like, how did we get to build roads and tall buildings when half the population is essentially sleep deprived for years on end? Like, how does anything get done? Because
Oh, as a parent.
like,
Yeah, that's a good question. How does
Zuckerberg
society
is
keep
my
functioning?
age, or like other CEOs, or just
Yeah.
regular workers. How do you, like, your 2-year-old comes over, cries, or just pukes up at night. You don't get any sleep. You didn't get any sleep last night before that, and it's like that for months. And yeah, I call them Guantanamo babies, because they just torture you, man. Is it too soon? Is it too soon?
Yeah, you're convincing me about, I don't know, maybe reconsidering ever having kids.
I know a few people who have deliberately chose not to have children, and that's a solid choice. I mean, it's clearly on the table, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy. That's all I
Yeah,
say.
for sure. I think people are choosing less these days, from what I understand. It's less common, less popular. It's difficult, it sounds like, and expensive and tiring and hard. And that's what I would guess. So, yeah.
Well, somebody has to do it, I guess. We can't really
Yeah.
offshore that responsibility.
I mean, I just wonder, the people making civilizations, maybe they weren't as big on families or kids or whatever. It's just men conquering things, building things. I don't know. But yeah, I hear you.
It's the only way men can do that if women are staying back and helping out on the other end.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would go. Actually, even the idea of war after having kids, it does not compute in my head. I cannot understand how any of the politicians,
Good point.
anybody who had a child, at all would even consider to start up something where somebody's child would die, even if that child was an adult. So our militaries are all well-formed adults for the most part in the world, and it's still somebody's children. Just because they're a little bit older and can vote doesn't make him any less child of yours. So I just don't understand that. Maybe I need to get older to fully grasp it, but I don't think it's in my grasp right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Occasionally, I get that wave of empathy where I'm looking at a person that I don't know at all, and I think about one of my children, and completely changes the way that the sensitivity I have toward that person in a massive way, and it's pretty powerful.
Well, and even movies, I can't. Well, I'm a sucker for movies. I always tear up before my wife always makes fun of me on the most cheesy moments too. But when it comes to anytime I see child suffering, even if it's implied, or a kid on the news, and of course there's always a poster child effect, but it still gets to me. Like I cannot. It's real difficult for me to handle my emotions when I see kids suffering or even like mildly uncomfortable. So
It sounds like your perspective has changed quite a bit since you've had kids. Is that
oh
right?
yeah, they definitely mellow you out, because if you start going crazy about everything, and I don't know, you just have to. Maybe that comes with age too, but I notice as I've traversed the last couple of decades, comparing me to my 20-year-old self, a lot more chill and I guess patient too. Maybe not with myself, but when it comes to other people, definitely. So
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I sort of agree with that. I also think that with kids, I recognize that I'm not as good of a person as I thought I was. I don't know if you resonate with that or not, but you know what I mean? So like, I personally think that you're sort of either there's sort of two options. You're either going to become a more patient person, or you're going to end up in prison. Because there's really like, you have to become one or the other, right? Like, depending on
Well,
your kids.
there's a third option. You can just check out. Yeah, you can just check out
Just gone.
and let your
True.
kids turn into what Lord of the Flies, Children of the Corn situation, and then just
That's
burn the
true. That's true.
house once you're done living in it, because nobody would even buy it because it'd be destroyed.
That's kind of
But
what I was
even
thinking too, though,
though,
John. Oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead.
I'll hold my thought.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I would be nervous just with kids because I think it would show all my faults. Like I would be
Yeah.
afraid that all my crap would come out, and kids notice it and they point it out, and they're just like, they're a little bit mean
They
sometimes to
don't.
adults.
They have no point of reference. For the first few
Yeah.
years, you're the saint, you're the strongest, biggest, and kindest. And, it's the worst kind of reinforcement, because you think, oh, yeah, I am that great. My poop doesn't stink. And no, it does. It does, especially if you self-reflect. So,
My favorite
I mean,
was
I
when
did.
my oldest son said, "Dad, when am I going to be big like you?" And I'm only 5'8", so I'm relatively short. And so that was a big confidence booster when he's like, "When am I going to be big?" Like, he's thinking like I'm just this huge guy.
Well, my boy thinks that by eating carrots and broccoli, he'll be big like me, which is true. Eventually, he will grow up to be bigger by eating those two things, in addition to other things.
Yeah.
So, but
Most everything. He'll most likely get bigger.
every time he takes a bite of a carrot, he says, I'll be big like you, Dad." I'm like, yes, probably bigger.
So in some ways, back to patience, I do think that I've become more patient, more chill, like you were saying. But I also recognize I'm more hyper aware of my impatient moments. So I think I never would have seen, without kids, I never would have seen those, like, me being pushed to the edge, like all my buttons pushed, all of them that I could ever imagine. And it's not pretty. It's not as pretty as I wish it was or thought it might have been. It's pretty bad.
Well, that's true, and I think there are some ideas about that they're wired specifically to push your buttons and not other people's buttons, your
Yeah.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
And And that's again why sometimes I call them Guantanamo babies, because they just have that. And how do you explain? So just today, my daughter wanted ice cream for breakfast, right? And we said no, obviously, because we're good parents. She started screaming, yelling, and demanding it at a high and loud pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And as a father, I'm like, look, we don't scream to get your point across or to get stuff. So that's the lesson I want her to learn. But unfortunately, after 15 or 20 minutes of screaming, here comes the ice cream, gets scooped up into the ice cream cones and passed around. So clearly,
So it is working.
screaming works. Why would you learn something else? And meanwhile, my older son looks at it, and how do you explain to him that even though he's been polite in asking for candies and refused, he's done the right thing when his sister screamed and got her way, and there was an incorrect behavior. So
Different treatment to different kids.
well, yeah, and also it doesn't. It doesn't what's the good word, correspond to like the expected versus actual behavior. So we expect them to be polite and get their stuff, but when they ask politely, they get refused for their own good. Meanwhile, when they're impolite, and maybe that's just bad parenting. Maybe I should have stuck to my guns and ruined my morning and.
Well, it's interesting how different the perspectives are. You understanding the ice cream is not the best for your health, and your daughter, thinking that ice cream is the ideal thing to eat for a meal. It's two very different perspectives, and so just like opinions, if you and I have completely different opinions, it's interesting to sit here and think like, how. We're in this massive argument because how can you say that? Because my opinion is completely different than yours, but I feel like we should have the same opinion. You know what I mean? That's sort of like what's going on with you and your kid too.
Yeah, what are you talking about? Ice cream's amazing. It's
I love
yummy.
it too.
Exactly.
I love ice cream.
How would you not eat that for breakfast?
Lunch and dinner.
Yeah. And then add some fries to it. Paradise.
Yeah.
No, I get it. And I like candy too. Lots of candy.
I think I finally grew out of them. So.
Have you ever had enough? So I don't love cookies, but I do love cookie dough. I think you should never cook it. You should just eat the dough. And have you ever had so much cookie dough that your stomach actually is in pain? You have to go lay down or something?
I have not.
Yeah, I've done that multiple times.
So much of cookie dough, raw cookie dough you're talking about?
It only takes about...
that's eggs. I think that's eggs.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Or the chocolate chips.
The raw eggs in it.
Sugar. I don't know what it is.
Well, you have to understand too. By all inference, I should be loving all the sweets and ice cream. I grew up in the country, and in the time where like Snickers bars were advertised as a snack, like a healthy snack. Oh, you're hungry?
Oh, nice.
Grab a Snickers. And a single Snickers bars would cost more than like 2 loaves of bread. So we would have those things for birthdays. For your birthday, you get a very fancy candy. Here's your Snickers bars. You lose your mind because it's incredible, and then you eat it in small pieces for the next couple of weeks. So, I don't know. I don't know how. Maybe I should be loving the candy, and it's also American candy is very sweet. It's exceedingly tasty, but I don't know. I just grew out of it. Maybe get enough cavities.
Oh yeah, I could talk about that for a while too.
Yeah, that dissuaded a lot of my actions for sure. Enough cavities that'll do anything to anyone. Change behavior faster than anything. Too many cavities.
It's not the cavities; it's going to the dentist and having them fixed. I appreciate dentists. I'm grateful for them. I'd be a different person without them, but I hate being there, seeing the smoke coming out of my mouth and smelling it. I hate that.
It's both. Nowadays they pour some water in there so you don't see smoke. You taste it. It's now becomes flavored.
There you go.
smoke flavored water in there that squishes around. It makes you appreciate genetics too. My brother, uh, I think 2004 is when I went to visit my family, and until 2004, I'm pretty sure my whole family was sharing a single toothbrush.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, so I come in with my fancy Oral B, the gum action, whatever toothbrush, just a regular like $3 one that you get it, or maybe $6. Maybe I
Yeah.
was, whatever I got it for back in the day, and they're just like, oh, I can't believe it. So I had to leave that toothbrush at home for them to use. But that being said, my middle brother never had a cavity in his life, and
Wow.
I can't say that his dental care or practices have been the best. So maybe
Wow, just
now that
lucky.
he's an adult, but yeah, so genes sometimes can do
Yeah,
well for
that's
you.
awesome. That would be nice.
So I want to hear more about this. So you were we didn't mention that you're from Ukraine / Russia.
Yeah.
Maybe you can talk more about that, because what I just heard you say was that you guys grew up in a place that you had to share a toothbrush with your entire family till
Well,
2004. Is that right?
when we had a toothbrush, right? I don't remember necessarily having a
Okay.
toothbrush when I was younger,
Okay.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that we didn't have it. So our routine was go to the bathroom, wash your face, go to sleep. That was the routine. The toothbrushing was not part of the process, and neither were
Okay.
the PJs for that matter. But we shared a lot of stuff. So I mean, toothbrush is one thing. All the toilets I grew up till like till I moved to the U.S. Most of the toilets I used were public. Like even in our apartment building, you still have to walk outside, go to the bathroom, see your neighbors. There's no stalls. It was just like three holes in the floor. You just squat next to them, say hi, go back. You wake up at night in the middle of the winter. You still have to. That's what coat
I
on.
bet.
So
It's a cold
it's like
place.
you're like a streaker. Just in your undies underneath and underneath a big old coat and with big galoshes and just
Wait,
waddling
wait,
through
wait, wait,
snow.
wait. Sorry. So I'm like, I don't even know where to start right now. But do you mind if I ask, like, do you mind? I don't really know what you're talking about exactly, but
You piqued
would you
Jeremy's
mind talking
interest.
about it a little bit about,
Well,
so you're from
yeah,
Ukraine, like,
yeah,
what,
Russia and
when was that and
southern
how was that?
Russia. Yeah,
Okay.
by a city called Rostov. That's where I grew up. And yeah, I mean, literally, what I'm saying is, in the nuclear arsenal wielding country of Russia, up until 2004, a lot of people didn't. Well, toothbrush is one thing, but like public toilets were a thing. Um, what forced my family to. So I lived in the my family moved to be closer to the city around 94, 92, 92, 91 probably. And so we lived in this small building in a little town. There's eight other apartments in that building. Uh, all of the eight apartments had to go to this public bathroom that was shared between three other buildings like that, or
Okay.
three or four other buildings, and yeah, and that was in a so there's no sanitation. Our water had to be so all my childhood, like well in the 90s, my duty was like till I left Russia in 2000. My when I lived with my mom, my duty was to go outside and with a bucket and draw water from a local well and bring it. That was our drinking water because
Wow.
the water that was running water in the taps was a utility water. You couldn't drink it.
So there
Oh, you
was
could. You just wouldn't feel well.
no sanitation, no running waters in the apartments, and no
There was
plumbing,
running water. It was just not usable for anything
drinkable.
but washing yourself. It wasn't drinkable. Yeah,
Okay.
and that was pretty close to a major city, Rostov on Don. Yeah.
What was your,
Uh,
that's really interesting.
Eh,
What,
Even right
Why
now, I'm yeah.
why
Go ahead.
was the bathroom outside? I'm assuming that's because of smell. Just keep the smell away from the house.
What do
Why
you
wouldn't it
mean
be inside? I
outside?
mean, it's apartment. There's eight of them or whatever. Why can't it just be like one central bathroom inside?
That's a great question that apparently nobody's asked. And,
Okay.
and
It's just a different way of doing it.
in the post-Soviet and late Soviet space of civil
The,
engineering, that was not addressed.
Okay.
this was in southern Russia, you said, right?
Yeah, southern Russia.
And what is the difference between that and what it's like now? Is it quite a bit different, or it's still similar to that?
No. I mean, you go into like American country, right? In I don't know, like some remote part of Pennsylvania or Ohio or something. I don't know, Kansas. I'm just throwing it out there. South Carolina. You can find places that are fairly removed from civilization. So you could have
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know. They won't look as nice as some neighborhoods that are urban or near urban. But just 2019, we went through a train ride on a rail that passes. It goes from Moscow to St. Petersburg, and it's a 3-hour ride. If you pay attention and you don't fall asleep, look out of the window. We're passing through a lot of towns and villages where, you can't tell, is that a living abode or chicken coop, and vice versa. So it'd be just remote Russia and near, especially if it's the farther east you go from Moscow, the worse it gets. So I wouldn't be surprised that I would be actually very surprised if a lot of Russian remote villages right now, or just townships, had running water or any kind of sanitation systems.
Many places are still similar to that then, you're saying. And
Yeah.
is your family still there? Or what was your family like then? And what are they up to now?
I've been here for 23 years now. We keep in touch. It's just not as you don't keep in touch as much as you would otherwise if you live nearby. So, but they were fine. My brothers were going to school back in the day, and now they're just all working. One's working in some electrical company, and the other one's helps managing a soccer club. That's his dream job. Which, if you love soccer, that would be anybody's dream job, really. Just have an equivalent of what's that FIFA video game in real life.
World Cup, FIFA, World Cup?
Yeah.
That's sweet. That's really cool. Is it a professional soccer team?
It's the professional regional soccer. National, actually. Russian national team.
So Roman, your parents, if I understand this right, both your parents are from Ukraine, and your sort of background is from Ukraine. Is that right?
No, both of my parents are Russian.
Okay.
All of my great grandparents are from Ukraine.
Okay.
Or what now is Ukraine. So it's just southern Russia. Borders are fairly porous, and so my ancestry kind of migrated slowly from Ukraine to what now is Russia.
To be closer to the city is what I heard you say.
From starting in 1920s, I think. That's when they settled. And so my last name didn't have a V at the end. It was Kupro for the longest time. Well, for my paternal great-grandfather. And then when they were giving away the Soviet passport, they Russianized into adding a V. And if you look at the last names of all my maternal grandparents, they're all also Ukrainian. In fact, growing up by Rostov, all the old people that I knew spoke some kind of semi-Ukrainian kind of hybrid language. So it wasn't Russian. And I think to this day, if I listen to Ukrainian news or something, I can kind of pick out a lot of what they're saying. It's a language that's similar to Russian. It's a Slavic language, but it sounds different.
So that's what you learned with this hybrid Ukrainian Russian language?
I picked up a little bit of it. I definitely speak proper Russian, and I wish I knew Ukrainian better, but there's only so much. It's just English and Russian for me. So, and maybe Spanish. I don't know. we'll see how far Duolingo will take me. So, but yeah,
Probably pretty far.
yeah, without live practice, probably fairly far.
You said you're learning
Yeah.
Ukrainian on Duolingo right now?
Spanish.
Spanish.
Duolingo.
Oh,
But
Spanish.
maybe
Okay.
I'll pick up Ukrainian just to reconnect with some of my roots. It's interesting. So the father of Russian literature, one of the great fathers of Russian literature, is Gogol, and his last name was Gogol, and was he's dead, but he's 100%. It's a Ukrainian guy. He grew up. He's Ukrainian, as Ukrainian as you can get. Russia claims him as their own father of Russian literature. So, which is to say, I think, and a lot of people disagree in terms of like where Ukraine stops and Russia starts, and where Russia stops and Ukraine begins. Having grown up on the border, at least eastern border of Ukraine and Russia, I feel like it's the same nation, same culture. To me, Western Ukraine definitely becomes more European, and it shows in the language and maybe some cuisine and stuff. But overall, it's to me, both cultures felt very native. But then again, it's hard to, especially in these kind of circumstances, what's going on with the war Russia's doing. It's difficult to not to ruffle anybody's feathers about how whether your culture is necessarily that different, or whether it is different or not. So a lot of people would be find some objections to that. So
anything else we're missing about your childhood that was really pretty different from, like, say, Western or American or whatever?
Well, I mean, the just almost everything. If I start thinking about,
Not much, just everything.
Yeah, not much. Just schooling, for example. In school, high school, middle school, you name it. First off, we didn't have fourth grade for some reason. I don't know why. But in my
Skip it.
we literally in the 90s we didn't even have books for the fourth grade, so there was no textbooks. It would be third, and then you go into the fifth grade. So I don't know why they didn't like number 4. And then
Unlucky number.
a lot of emphasis was made on collective work. So whereas some teachers were almost making fun, not almost, they were making fun of Western individualism and the attitude towards this is your work, belongs to you, private property type of thing. No, you gain better results, which admittedly is, you do gain better results by cooperation. But in Russian educational system, it ended up being more of a we'll just copy off the smart guy, and everybody would just copy everybody's homework. Well, everybody would copy the smart guy's homework. So there's 2 or 3 guys or girls in class, and then you learn how to copy their homework so that you wouldn't get caught. So you'd copy it and then add some errors in it, or pick some words if it's written. So there's a lot of emphasis on that, which is bewildering if you think about it.
So it's kind of like a cultural thing where we're doing this together, and there's no there's no individual. We get through this together.
Well, it's in fact, if you don't share your test answers or whatever homework with your classmate, that's frowned upon. That's not cool. Maybe things changed in the last 20 years, but 30 years. I guess I was in the 90s when I was going to high school. But that was the case then. And it was always kind of teachers against, even the higher education too. There's a lot of goofing off, you go to your college courses. They call them pairs because each class would be 2 hours long. And then the crux of the course is just when you take the exams. So nobody cares about their course until the exams come, and then they just either cheat by finding the answers that they need to fill in on the tests, or copy, or just really, really study hard, or give bribes to the teachers, which is also probably still a pretty common practice in higher education. So I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
did you do all of your higher education there in Russia?
No. I finished my high school in Russia, which was a paramilitary cadet school, and then I moved here and did my college and my graduate work all in the U.S.
Oh, nice.
So,
okay.
My original plan was to go back to Russia, American educated, but no, that didn't happen. So
what happened there? Do you mind if I ask?
Nothing in particular. Just so I was studying chemistry, and then you finish your schooling, you get your internship. They have an OPT, which is a time they give you to extend your internship. For scientific, the STEM majors, they give you extra 3 years or something like that. And then you add a H-1B visa that my employer got for me. I pretty much stayed here for 8 years after college. Then I got married and I stayed here. But I was ready to go. The U.S. does not make it easy to stay. When they say, "Oh, hey, come to the U.S. legally," well, there's not a legal way to come to the U.S. Legal, and it would make sense. So you'd have to apply for asylum, which difficult, extremely difficult. You either have to get married or win a lottery, and I think that's it. Oh, and there's a way through employer, but it's really difficult to get a job in the U.S. if you're why would they hire you as a permanent employer if they can just contract you out? So anyway,
so you preferred to go back. You really wanted to go back, but then it sounds like because of marriage,
I had no choice.
Your spouse talked you into staying.
Yeah, I had no choice. I was planning on going back. I had my ticket.
Sure.
I had my ticket in hand and everything, and then
it was your expectations, your mindset, because there was no other option. It wasn't necessarily your preference.
Right. Well, by the time I came to the U.S. in 2000, and I think my 2016 is when my H-1B visa that was extended ran out, or 17. So September 2017 is when I was planning on leaving. So by that time I spent all my formative years in the U.S. I've become culturally disconnected from Russia. And I had my family there, obviously, but little else really. And all meanwhile, Russia has been becoming more and more nationalistic in its internal politics and culture. So it didn't make it easy to go there, to go back and be excited about it. So it's just a stroke of luck. When my wife and I started dating, that was my essential approach. I said, "Hey, I have just a few months left in the U.S. I have my ticket. Worst case scenario, I was already leaving. Best case scenario, we're not talking about it. But if you do, we can just date and have fun, and then I'll peace out. In 5 months, no hard feelings." And so things worked out, but I really wasn't planning on that.
Did you have to rush a marriage to stay?
Well, that's what I wouldn't call it. Well, no, I would definitely call it rushing. In fact, when I told my wife, my now wife, my then girlfriend, I'm like, she was stressing out, like, "But how would you stay in the U.S.?" I'm like, "Well, there's one way. and I don't recommend it, I would have to get married, and that's what happened. We started dating a week before my wife's birthday in April of 2017, and we married in on August 25th that year. So April, just 3 months later, essentially.
Why didn't you recommend it?
July. No, I said I didn't recommend it because it's a dumb thing to do. Just to get married to first guy. We've dated around before, so but still 4 months is seems foolhardy. So, but things worked out. So it's been pretty great last 7 years. So.
Are there any? And she's from where's she from?
She is from born in California, raised in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So and was working in Utah at that time. So,
anything come to mind that's like the biggest cultural shock between you two?
No, and that's the thing. I think at this point the biggest cultural difference between me and most U.S. citizens would be native U.S. Born and raised U.S. people would be like of my age is that I didn't grow up watching like Saved by the Bell or Fresh Off the Boat or whatever.
You missed out, man.
Yeah, like
actually.
He-Man. He-Man.
Yeah, He-Man.
Thundercats.
I know there's a Skeletor in there somewhere. So
yeah, he's cool.
and that's it. Oh, but I did watch Transformers, for example. So
that's a good one,
right? So but that's it. When it comes to just overall socialization, I definitely got socialized in the U.S. and not in Russia. So when I come to Russia and I smile at people, when you meet people, you smile at them, right? So Russia's like a prison. Like if you smile at somebody and look them in the eye, that's like a threatening move, maneuver. You don't want to smile. You can look in the eye, but don't smile. If you smile, you probably try to take advantage of them. Like they take it personally. So serious. Gotta be serious. When you.
What do you mean? It's like a prison? Just in that way, or other ways too?
Now it's probably more than one way, but it's in the way that your social interactions are a little bit more on the edge. It's dog eat dog, kind of attitude. So, and to say nothing, once you get to know Russians, they're the kindest people. It's just you have to break through the hard shell.
I mean, tell us a little more about that, because I think Russians haven't been in the best light because of their leadership. Tell us a little more about the Russian people and why they're wonderful.
Well, they're kind and friendly once you spend some time with them. So generally very blunt, but you can't put the fault of whatever the government's doing at the fault of the people.
Yeah.
Squarely, especially considering that the democratic process in Russia is far from democratic in any way. One could argue the same about the U.S., but at least it works on some level here. But in Russia, it definitely doesn't work. There's not a pretense even. So, and then it becomes the game of, do you want to risk, be vocal and vocally opposed to the your national kind of zeitgeist, and then get ostracized, or just keep it quiet, keep it down, and pay taxes and raise your kids and be present in your life. A friend of mine in Russia called it internal immigration, when you just immigrate inside yourself. So he goes to church.
Immigrate where?
Into yourself.
Inside of yourself.
Just away from the bad experience of the outside of yourself.
Yeah. He goes to church, and a lot of his church friends he hears a lot of hate rhetoric that the government spews out from people who he would expect it the least. A lot of warmongering amongst his friends, so he has nobody to talk to except for just essentially immigrate inside his head, inside his mind. And that's the only place that's truly safe for now in Russia. But before you know it, it's and it's only safe if you don't post anything on social media. Because if you do, and you're of any consequence, like that is, you're trying to be politically active in any way or threaten anybody in the political system, they will put you to jail. So there's
Wow, really?
Andrew 8-year sentence, I think, for just a couple of Facebook posts that were posted years before whatever the party he was associated with was classified as undesirable. So, which essentially in Russian speak, undesirable means it's as close to terrorist organization as you can get. Like, so it is a felony to belong and to promote an organization that's undesirable. And then you have Navalny, right, who's been in jail for 2 years after he was trying to be he was attempted at being poisoned, what was proven to be federal government. But again, those guys have clout, right? If it's just you and me just spouting out anti-Putin messages, whatever, probably, unless some cop takes a issue with you, nobody's gonna do anything about it. Okay. Slap you with a fine and let you go. But if you're in public space or have business, your chances of losing it or ending up in jail are very, very high.
What if you're in America and you're on a podcast and you talk bad about it?
Well, there's plenty of them. There's plenty of. You just can't make threats, right? You can't be like, I'm gonna go and do this to this public official, and then I'm gonna go and do that to the other public official.
There's a certain level of threat where it crosses the line.
Well, right. It's there's some freedom of speech absolutists who think, my freedom of speech starts with my fist and ends with your nose or something. But that's not really true. You swinging the fist and then stopping just a quarter inch before my nose still qualifies as a threat. Not just a threat, but an assault, because it's the intent also that counts. We can't just go around. We can't build a society if everybody goes swinging and not hitting. So, and you can have the stress will be the same. Well, it won't be the same clearly, but people will be stressed out if every time you go somewhere, people, have you done that in school when you're just like swing at somebody and then you move like, it's like, I'm not hitting, I'm just fixing my hair.
It's
flinch.
threatening.
One for flinching, two for...
It's not totally innocent, for sure.
Yeah. So, yes, or the classic example of crying fire in a movie theater, right? Can't do that if there's
crying
no fire. Wolf. Well, I think the fire in movie theater is the specific example that they use for like not judicial purposes, but to describe that you can't just have free speech to just say anything anywhere. So there are limitations. So absolutely. So in terms of,
Oh, sorry.
I'm saying in terms of not saying anything inflammatory and, straight up threatening or illegal. There are legal limits to which in which freedom of speech exists. So, and Noam Chomsky has a lot to say about it, but obviously we wouldn't have time here. And I recommend Noam Chomsky to anybody who's listening.
It sounds like you can see a clear difference between freedom of speech here in America and in Russia. Would you say they don't really have freedom of speech there?
Well, freedom of making noise out of your mouth, they have plenty of freedom to do that. But freedom of speech where you can be heard, I do not believe so. I think the last truly independent news station was shut down and taken over by the government in like 2003 or something, 2001, the NTV.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And even just a couple of weeks ago, I wish I had it on me, but they put a female journalist in jail or started an investigation into her for whatever article she wrote. So there's no way to be nearly as well. Yeah, you can't. You have freedom of speech in Russia as long as you don't criticize the ustoy, what they call the way things are, the government and
In a public
the politics. Yeah, exactly, in a public forum. Which, I mean, in the U.S. it takes a different shape, right? There are topics that we talk about and topics we don't, so we kind of self-censor, forget about things.
So changing the subject a little bit, I see you as a very friendly neighbor, Roman. Is that nature or nurture? In other words, like, is that you becoming that yourself over time, or is that how your parents taught you, or is that just who you are, popped out of the womb? That's who you are.
I think it's both. I mean, the stranger danger ideology has not been a part of Russian upbringing for sure. There's no such thing. Like, so me growing up as a kid, it was definitely more of a village thing. So coming from school, we wouldn't go home. We'd go to our neighbor's home and we'd stay with grand lady who lived there and her grandkids for a couple hours before my parents would come from work. With
Nice.
that kind of stuff. So you really would know almost all of your neighbors on the block that you lived in. So I don't know why you wouldn't do it here. So, and I take opportunities to get to know people, and life is easier. It's more fun when there's a village.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's sort of the vibe that I get from you and got from you from the very beginning. And I think that's fantastic. And I wish there was a lot more of that. I think there's a lot of reasons it's not like that, but none of us grew up in a village, probably the way I'm assuming you are expressing here. The way you're
more like a town. I'm talking about village as a proverbial village.
Okay, gotcha. But then there's a lot of automatic garage doors where you can just drive in and not even say hi, let alone have a conversation.
It starts with the automatic garage doors and ends with social media or texting.
Yeah.
I'll just shoot you off a text. Never had to talk to you again. I just saw your picture on Facebook or whatever they use nowadays. And,
Instagram.
That counts for
everyone. I know what everyone's doing because I can look at their Instagram. Yeah.
True.
I haven't talked to them in 10 years, but.
That $1 billion investment paid out for Facebook.
Tell me a little bit about your twos. Like, why is he such a great neighbor, John? Like, I want to know. Explain to me what is different about him than someone else, if that's not too weird. What is the nature of your guys' relationship? Neighbors.
Well, we both have kids that are, John has, his youngest is just a year older than my boy, so they get to play together, and it's great. And I think my little girl is really fond of him too. Just always, he looks around. Go look outside, see if he's playing.
Come play on the hammock.
Yeah. So, and then John himself, really easy to talk to. He's the only one who will, patiently listen to my ranting about, establishment or water conditions and water rights in the West, and
the HOA going up $5.
Oh yeah, from 25. That's a 20% bump. That's crazy.
When they don't do anything, yeah.
Well, yeah, but even if they do, imagine your paycheck just went up 20%. It's also about, it's like $5 is not much, but it's so relatively speaking. So they just got a 20% bump. I tend to go off on things. So John is very easy to go off of with and have these conversations. So because he gives back, I rant a little bit, he gets to rant a little bit, and then before you know it, my wife comes out and like, Dinner's gold, man.
No,
Right
I
on.
think I blame it on Roman. I think that he took the first steps. I think that he crossed the road. Like a road doesn't seem that big, but in neighborhood land, it feels like forever to like cross a road and like go across and
Yeah.
go all the way over and actually have the audacity to start having a conversation. And I think Roman showed sort of like a lack of fear to like walk all the way across the road and just start. I can't remember the first time, but I definitely remember that was how it was from the very beginning. And
I probably brought you some bread. I
yeah,
think I was in sourdough back then. I was baking
yeah,
a lot.
which is,
Yeah.
you know, a quick way to the heart, right? Just like feeding people. Oh, and
Well,
also
So
we did pizza one time. Like we went to your place and you fed us like, I don't know, you have a pizza. I think you have a pizza
sourdough
oven.
pizza, yeah. I made some
And they
sourdough
just kept
pizza.
coming. I think you made 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10 pizzas. It was like way too much for us to eat, but they just kept coming.
It was probably 4 or 5.
It felt like 10.
Well, but you have to cross the road, man. If you don't cross the road, you don't get to know anybody, and it's so easy to just make an excuse like, "Oh, I don't know who those people are across the street. They're so far away." Those guys. So we even growing up,
Yeah.
we had a little freeway going through our town, and it's a small town. I think maybe 1,200 people total. So that's what 200 families, 250 families, and people who lived across that little highway. It was just one stoplight, and the crosswalk. I had no idea who they were. We called them that part of town. That it was referred to Tothutor. So that part of town, and yeah. So you didn't play with the kids very much. You see them at school. Oh, where do you live? Oh, over there. Okay. Well, see you tomorrow. I guess we have nothing to talk to, and that's not right. I feel like we owe it to ourselves and to our neighborhoods too. We're a little bit better off
Yeah.
knowing each other and being friends.
It does take effort. Like it does take a little bit of like, okay, this is going to take some effort, which sounds sort of silly to even say, but like it's true. But then I recognize the reward. I definitely recognize, and I know that you do too, Roman. Is like there's a reward if you're willing to cross that road. Then now, hopefully they'll be okay with it. They'll be comfortable with it. Like, okay, that's cool that you came over, and they'll accept me because I walked over and I want to talk to them. It seems like anybody would, but it's not necessarily the case. But it's always rewarding to have that conversation and to just get to know each other a little bit better, and then to know that we have each other's backs. I let you know when I'm out of
Right.
town, and I let when I don't
And
have an ingredient.
I can come to you if we're missing some spice or whatever, or carrot that got eaten. And really, but consider this too. It wasn't like I only approached. After I approached, the ball's in your court, so it's up to us to reciprocate. So when people make an effort
Yeah,
to approach us and to get to know us, we need to be able to recognize it and respond accordingly, which you did, which is why we're talking now, and
yeah.
we'll be talking
And
more.
this might sound weird, but like my culture, I guess I'll just blame it on my culture, upbringing, or whatever. My experience, from my perspective, is that to have a guy come over, a male, is even a little bit like more. And then another step is to have a guy bringing food like that they created in their own hands. That's two, like in my cultural world, that's 2 steps of it's different.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, it would be weird in Russia as well. So if I lived in a Russian town and just baked a loaf of bread, and showed up at your door, people, especially smiling and looking you in the eye, people will
well, I was gonna say is
look,
that it
look
sounds like
for
that's
razor blades inside or something.
sounds like that's a Russian thing,
gosh.
but maybe it's not so much. Maybe it's just a you thing.
I definitely didn't look
It's-
for razor blades. That's for sure.
And I appreciate that. Maybe not.
It didn't cross my mind at all. I mean, you hope that when you look at a person, you can sense some, what's the word? Some motives, and when all their motives seem to be pointing in the direction of like just good, good-hearted, warm-hearted, and stuff like that, you hope you can trust your gut.
Well, and I appreciate that a motive of having a connection, a genuine connection with a person, is a good motive enough to be considered as such. And because sometimes it's not. Sometimes people think, oh, why would he have approached me just to talk to me? That sounds weird. That doesn't sound normal.
Yeah,
And that's
it is
sad,
weird.
too.
It's different. It's unique. It's even like, you could call it strange because it's not normal from my observation. And, you know, for what, instead of judging like, why is he doing the abnormal? It's more like, that's nice. That's really refreshing. I wish this was the normal. That's the way I see it.
And there you go. If it feels nice, we should probably normalize it. So
Yeah.
probably. Well, yeah. I was like, can we take that too far? I think we can, but probably not today.
Yeah, it would take a while probably to be too far.
You could. Stranger danger.
So, well, but then you can take. I mean, by that extension, you can make any argument irrelevant if you take it out too far.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that we can't still work on things and do things. So just because if you blow up the scale, your argument will fall apart. Because right, who was that? Who was that economist? Keynes. In the 40s, I believe, or right after the Great Depression. In the long term, we're all dead. Well, yeah, in the long term, we're all dead. That still, it means we need to make good decisions while we're alive. Though it's not a reason to just give up and just like, well, we're just gonna die anyway.
So I, in general, and we might disagree on this just a little bit, like I, in general, think that humans, individuals, humanity are good. And this could be a huge debate, right? Like you could debate this in a big way in a lot of different ways, but like, I'm just naive. Maybe it was my upbringing. I don't know. Maybe it's why I live in a relatively safe neighborhood. I tend to think that people are good. And so that's the way that I receive them. Good intentions. That's just me.
I 100% agree. I don't know. I might look like a little angry at times, but I do believe that overall humanity is a kind phenomenon. And if you see a child crying on the street somewhere or somebody in need, if you don't have innate desire to come and help him, or at least inquire what's going on, right? That's probably what we would call like a psychopath or something, when you don't empathize with people.
Some level of it,
which
yeah.
is not normal. Yeah, which is not normal. I think most people would empathize and would inquire and would help. So I think by and far, the goodness is something that's ingrained in us. But we're also easy to, there's also a darker part to us that we have to keep in check, and that also takes effort. So it's which is why so many terrible things throughout history have happened, because it's just so easy to let go and be consumed by hate and anger and frustration, and then don't think or feel the anger part. So, and not the compassion part.
I am grateful for a safe neighborhood, by the way. Not saying it's like a wealthy neighborhood or overly upper class or anything like that. It's pretty middle of the road, I would think, for this sort of area, but it feels pretty safe, and I'm really grateful for that.
Well, I have lived in an unsafe neighborhood, honestly. I don't know what an unsafe neighborhood looks like. Maybe I could imagine it, but I lived in West Salt Lake for a while. That's where I started living, right by the airport in those neighborhoods, which to some people, unsafe place. But I think that's just a shorthand for there's a lot of immigrants living in there. And yeah, sure, there's a lot of Latino people and Pacific Islanders. Yeah, but they all were fantastic neighbors. So in fact, some of their yards were much better. If you're gonna just go by the outward appearance, were much better taken care of than some of my white neighbors who were much less well kept. So it's sure. Safety is one of those things that whatever makes you safe is not necessarily an objective thing. It's definitely a subjective feeling. I
Yeah.
feel like. So.
Yeah, and when we're looking for places to live, we've moved 7 or 8 times since I've been married, and when we're looking for places to live, safety is always a really important thing, especially for my wife, with her children and staying home and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean like we need to live in a wealthy area. Those are two different things.
Right. Well, yeah, and honestly, when it comes to safety factor, I think Utah as a whole is a pretty dang safe state.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like maybe Colorado's next, or I don't know, Oregon. I'm just shooting off the hip here. So and maybe that's just my risk tolerance factor. While I lived in West Salt Lake for years, if I didn't lock my front door, that wasn't a big deal. In fact, it was open most of the time, now that I think about it, until I got married. And then that was put to a quick and abrupt end. So, in fact,
Makes sense.
Well, does it? It didn't make sense to me. Why do I need to lock my door? It's my house.
Yeah.
Why do I need to
bringing
lock
other
all the
people
windows?
into the relationship might have an impact on that. I can see.
Yeah, why I understand it with my brain, but at the same time, if somebody wants to come into my house maliciously, with a malicious intent, they're gonna come in. Like, that door's not gonna open. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't put enough money into that door for it to be structurally sound. Neither any of the windows in that house.
It's not going to take much.
Yeah. True.
So and then at this point we're just negotiating levels of imaginary violence that's going to take place, and if I live in that world, just relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Loosen your shoulders. So.
Do you lock your doors at night?
Well, now I do, because I know that if I don't, I'll be sent back downstairs and lock them. And in fact,
it's so easy.
I'm pretty sure.
Even when they're locked, I still get sent to check them.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I live in the safest neighborhood possibly in the world, and I lock my door at night just because, like, I don't know. There's no way nobody's coming in here ever, but I don't know. It's just like, why not? I don't want someone just randomly, like, I'm checking doors at night and having to.
Somebody will have to make it to your neighborhood on foot, possibly. Yeah, maybe on the car. I don't know. Find your house, walk in. There's a lot of stars need to align. You'll miss a line.
Yeah.
I always thought that when I was a kid with my parents, they would lock their car doors. I'm like, why are you guys locking your car doors? Who's going to break into I don't know what's in your car that they're going to get. Like, they can't take it, but.
Yeah, growing up, we never ever. I don't think we ever locked our house or car doors. Maybe at night, my mom would lock the house doors, but cars back then, you had to like stick your key in, I think, and lock it. I think, yeah, you definitely did, right? Or lock it from the inside of the car. But now it's so easy. You just push a button. It's almost foolish to not just push that button, even though I hesitate every time. It's like, I don't need to lock my car, but I still, because it's just so convenient and easy. Anyway.
Well, the cars are also kind of like bicycles. They are a crime of opportunity.
Right.
People who steal bikes don't necessarily go out thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna steal a bike today." They see a bike. Oh, it's unlocked. I guess it's mine now. So, and same with car. If there's something on the inside that they possibly could catch somebody's attention, who are not as ethically bound by laws of property that govern our property, they're just like, "Oh, let me check on the door." And if the door's open,
exactly,
then it's like you're that far into it. So you weren't gonna commit a crime, but now you're
like your garage door. My kids would prefer to leave it open all day long, and that's fine. It's probably going to be fine. Most likely, it's fine. There's nothing to be taken, and there's nothing super valuable in there anyway. There are some bikes, and like if those were taken, and they're not very valuable. But if they were taken, it's a burden on me and our family to like go get another bike
or if somebody comes into my garage and takes stuff, unless they take my bike, whatever they can carry, they're welcome to it, because that frees up my space.
And they need it more than you.
I don't have to decide whether I need to throw it away or not.
That's
I don't
sometimes
even
what
know
I
what's in
think.
that
Like,
box.
man,
Yeah.
if someone's bold enough to steal something from me, they need it that bad. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, take
Yeah.
it, man. Like, geez,
Would,
you need it more
would
than
you
I
like
do.
would you like a snack for the road?
Yeah, seriously. I
I mean, not
baked
that
some
far.
pizzas and some bread. Here you
Yeah.
go.
But I mean, we're joking, but really, it's not as bad. I mean, they're a good. I mean, and it comes down to like what risk mitigation. It's a risk and reward, right?
Yeah.
The risk of
Yeah.
somebody coming in and stealing something that you worked for. If it's
Yeah.
low risk, but the implication is high, then just lock the car.
Well,
Exactly.
and
It's
the
not that
weirder
hard.
thing is when like you haven't needed something for like a year, but then you go to get it and it's not there. And then you have this weird feeling of like, wait a minute, did somebody take this? And like, if somebody took this, what else did they take? It could be a bunch. And then you sort of waste a lot of time thinking about that.
I
hate that.
literally never in my life have I had that thought that, oh, I'm missing something. Somebody must have taken it. No, I first blame myself. I must have put
Wow.
it somewhere away.
That's impressive. That's impressive for sure. My
You
logic
guys-
is usually like, I don't think anyone took this, but there's always like something. Like, where else would it be? But
A
most likely
ghost.
no one did.
That's how you
Yeah,
start
that's
believing in ghosts. So that's a slippery
That's why I
slope.
do, because everything's missing.
Now that's why I keep everything on my eye level, and which drove my wife nuts for a while. But I just put a thing, any old surface, I just put it on as long as at my eye level. At some point, I will find it. So it's
But my kids leave the garage door open. Like they will leave it open all day and only be out there 20% of the day, right? So I have my garage door closing automatically every hour just because like I don't want it to just be open all day.
Well, the solution to that is put a bunch of garbage in your garage, so that it's not even attractive to look at. So, but then it's not attractive.
My kids
to
do
look
that
at
job.
to anybody.
How safe would you guys say your neighborhood is? Like, what are the chances of some random guy stealing something from your
Well,
house?
it would most likely be a kid who wants a bike because there's some just down the
You're
street.
being very kiddist. You're being very kiddist, John.
Well, no. Okay, so
Yeah,
this
what
has
are you,
happened.
dude?
There was a
hate
certain
kids? You hate
there was
kids,
a
John?
certain child in our neighborhood, and she lives in the poor area just down the street, like the area where kids don't have it. They don't have as much things, and this one girl.
A lot of cumulative.
I heard multiple stories that she would just sort of walk. If she saw a bike, she would just sort of take it. Maybe not even trying to steal or be mean or anything. It's just like, oh, there's a bike and I don't have one, so she would take it, and then she would just end up putting it in random places. And I heard multiple stories of this one child. That's what I mean. That's more likely than.
That's a troubled child. Which fine.
Yeah.
Sure. But you know what? The fact that they live in a poor place, just because you're poor doesn't make you any more morally compromised. And
No,
honestly,
I'm not saying that. She just didn't have a bike.
But even if you have privileged kids who have bikes, and they will look at a bike and they'll just ride it down the street because it's fun.
Yeah.
Because bikes are fun.
Yeah, right.
That's not a talent thing really. But when it comes to real safety, again, if you ask me, I'll say yes. This neighborhood is extremely safe. The previous neighborhood I lived in was extremely safe, despite the fact that a police chased down a guy and cuffed him up in our front yard. That was a one-off. And also my neighbor across the street, I guess, had a bullet hole in his window. But that was also a one-off. So there's no bullet hole.
Getting less and less safe, in my opinion.
Someone told me 4 houses down or so, somebody broke into a basement. However, the guy who told me was a home security person, so he might just be making up the story to sell home security.
Right. And look,
Probably.
and you don't even need to be a security person to make up those stories. All you have to do is join
Nextdoor,
whatever, Facebook or
Nextdoor.
And you'll get all the dishes. Nextdoor is an app. I take it. Yeah, you'll get dished all the juiciest quote unquote crime that's going to happen that happens in your neighborhood. Oh, somebody kicked a cat. Somebody weird was looking into my door camera. Well, good thing you have the door camera, so now you can freak out every time you think.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's mostly because dogs crap in their front yard. That's usually what the conversation is. Or they lost their dog that got away.
Sure. I can't remember. Somebody got stabbed. To ask my wife, but it was a few streets down. Some weirdo kind of steps on, like or maybe teenagers steps on. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There was a knife involved, some punctures sustained, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, I'm not here to defend anybody, but probably mental health involved,
Sure.
and some like, what are the chances of somebody coming in? Like, do we have a stabbing epidemic where people just go and stabbing people in their houses or breaking in with guns? No, like that doesn't happen in any neighborhood unless
Yeah.
it's
I'm
a
like you.
neighborhood that's
I like to
actually known for that.
consider the statistical potential of any given thing happening, and statistically it's so small. I don't miss anything I could consider that
Yeah.
I just sort of wave it off.
Well, so again, if you ask me, I'll say very, very safe. If you ask my wife, should probably go check the door again. So,
That's interesting.
Perception of safety is, I think, seems to be a very subjective thing from person to person.
One thing I liked when we moved into this neighborhood 2 years ago is that I noticed that kids, and this I've never witnessed this before, but like there's quite a bit of kids in this neighborhood, and they in a sense, not totally, but like they'll sort of come in and out of homes. They'll just sort of like there'll be this mob going in and out of people's homes, and they're very like open. It sort of feels like a village in that way, and it's. I was like, this is cool. I like that they're that open.
I do like that.
Comfortable.
I almost flirt with the idea of how cool it would be to drill some holes in the fences, like put little doors in there so kids can just like go backyard to backyard. Probably wouldn't go very well and not do well for long-term property values. But overall,
or just leave the gate open.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be able to cross. Yeah, you
tunnels, Roman.
Giant
tunnels. PVC pipe tunnels. It's just a C shape underneath the fence. How about that? You can slide in and out.
I'm glad you mentioned PVC because I was thinking straight up holes.
No. Kids might like that, but
no, those will get flooded though. You have to put the roof on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's nasty.
So you want to. What do you want to do? Is overpasses made of PVC.
John, I know John in his backyard had like a ladder right over your fence in your backyard, right? Kids were just
now we're talking. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I would have put in a gate so they could just get out, and there's kids behind us that they could hang out with. But a gate costs money, so I just thought let's put it. In fact, a neighbor offered his ladder to put there, and we just had his ladder there. The problem with them being able to freely get in and out of backyards is that you don't know where they are. So like I'll be sitting here, and this happened to me recently, where Felix was gone, and I was like, oh shoot, like he was just in the basement, and I was not hyper aware where he was, and all of a sudden he was gone, and I was like, I gotta go knock doors.
He was probably at my house.
He was.
Oh yeah. There you go.
Which is great, and he's totally safe, but how do you, it's almost like you need on the front door, you need to like, there needs to be like a thing you Velcro on for like each kid that's at your house that time, so you can.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Well, that was on me. I probably should have. I think I was at work, but my wife should have texted. Yeah.
Don't they have like a collar? Maybe not a collar, but like a bracelet or something. You can track them on your phone.
Yeah, you can. You could buy those. Sure.
Yeah, but then you turn them into pets.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds a little cruel.
Sort of takes away their autonomy or freedom or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, we already chip ourselves with our phones, right? You can see where your spouse is
when they have a phone.
Bro.
Yeah. Just give your phone to your child, and let him go play with your phone. That's they'll keep you off your phone, keep track of the child. There's no guarantee you'll get your phone back, though.
Yeah.
Without being broken. I mean, some kids have like watches, and that's instead of a phone, they just have a watch, and those are relatively cheap. Or you can buy bracelet thingies too, but which I think would be great for like a theme park.
Capital H hate those watches, the Gab watch. They're pretty aggressive with their advertisements in Utah. I don't know. I think they took down some of those posts, which I don't know who fact checks their numbers. They're like 30 million predators online right now. I'm like, dude, the U.S. population is like 320. Tell me,
30 million, Roman.
You think that by and large, which cuts down the population to like 160 million. So you tell me like every fourth person, male person, or like every third out of like those bullshit numbers. Like that's just made to make you scared and buy a watch for your kid, so you can monitor their heartbeat.
Yeah.
That's like
I don't even know what that
black-
is. Isn't it? Is it a watch or is it a phone? It's just a crappy phone,
Both.
like a
It's
dumb
both.
phone.
There's it's like a super discount iPhone iWatch.
It looks like a smart
Oh, okay.
phone, but it's a dumb phone essentially. I mean, I guess they're
Yeah.
slowly introducing apps.
It's all it is. It's a way to capitalize on parents' fear, which comes naturally if you're for your children. But these guys just capitalizing on that,
And also tech unsavviness.
unabashedly.
If you don't understand, you're not tech savvy and you don't want to think about how to use screen time, for example, to make your phone safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just buy one of those Apple whatever tags or what are they called?
Yeah.
AirTags.
Yeah, just throw them in their backpack or
Yeah.
glue it into their shoe if you really care, and then send it
Yeah.
off.
That's a cheaper way to do it.
And probably less. Like, I mean, I'm not giving anybody any ideas, but if I were a predator, first thing I'd do is cut off the watch and throw it away. Right? Like,
Yeah.
you're not gonna put anybody in a van with a tracking device on it. So,
If you know.
like-
if you know.
well, of course, there's a watch right there on their
The
person.
watch.
So,
Oh, I thought you meant stick an AirTag in their sole of their shoe. They're not gonna find that.
which you wouldn't know as a. So that's a better. So they should really be. Like, we should really
Yeah.
pitch that to an Apple marketing department. And they will take
Gab
the Gab
sole,
watch.
Gab shoe sole.
Gab sole, yeah.
But I mean, you market it
don't-
to everyone; they're all gonna know now. So
Don't give away the good ideas.
Well, right. So, but that's now that becomes a giveaway. If you see an adult next to a van and there's a kid who's taking off his watch and his shoes, probably kidnapping that's happening. So you shouldn't intervene as a responsible citizen. So, 'cause nobody's gonna take time to take off shoes and search your pockets or whatever. So, well, which is
Yeah.
anyway. You know what I mean? That's
That's a good rabbit hole, though. I like it.
So how can we protect our children?
Well, Roman, thanks for your time, man. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. I honestly appreciate you being able to sort of probe a little bit, ask some deeper questions, and give us, talk honestly together, and it's great.
Yeah, dude. Anytime. It was great. Good luck with the podcast.
Thanks.
If you have any other non-podcast interesting questions, I'm just across the road.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Come over.
yeah, it was great
Alright.
to meet you, Roman. Thanks so much for the time. It was awesome. Fun to
Thanks,
talk.
guys. All right.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
Okay, see you, man.
Bye.